Yeah, and I have a bit in my act that sort of makes fun of Justin Bieber and some of these young pop stars. Basically, it's a song, and it mocks the way that those songs are written, which I think is... What the songs basically do is they're love songs to girls, and they describe the girls as vaguely as they possibly can, so that every girl can think that that song's about them. So it's like, I love how your fingerprints are different than everybody else's, and like, I love how your eyes have that like bluish, brownish, greenish color, and your torso is an arm on either side of it, or like whatever. That seems sort of harmless, but then it kind of gets a little darker and sort of accuses these young pop artists of being part of this cycle where girls read magazines, feel terrible about themselves because it says, you know, you should be skinnier, you should be prettier. They feel terrible. And then these pop stars tell them that they're perfect and that they're beautiful in the songs. They buy the song. And then the pop stars on the cover of the magazines, they buy a magazine again. So they're like, And it's sort of just like this vicious cycle. And I basically, like, it's sort of implied that he's working for Satan or whatever.
Oh, hello, Satan.
Oh.
Little shout out to Justin. How's Satan? Yeah. That's great.
Unless something else that I find more engaging or more important comes along, I do plan to continue making episodes of Fake Friends proper past episode 4. But either way, there are a ton of topics related to parasocial relationships that I feel would be better suited to smaller standalone videos. Like, I got a lot of comments asking about K-pop or idol culture, and those would warrant a longer video. But if I hadn't included Paro in episode 2, that's the kind of topic that would fit as something shorter and more self-contained. The Fake Friends episodes are long and dense, and are my attempt at bringing together a bunch of seemingly unrelated topics to show a broader picture of how these relationships have infected our lives. The spin-off episodes will be more self-contained, and closer to a regular video essay than a sprawling documentary. The two shortest and most accessible pieces I've found in the past 2 years of research that cover parasocial relationships the way that I view them are the original Horton and Wall write-up from 1956 and the music video for Bo Burnham's song Repeat Stuff. It's a fun video to watch and not think twice about, but part of why I find it so valuable, and worth devoting a whole 40-minute video to, is how dense it is, and just how much is going on, including what didn't register the first time I watched it, or the second, or the third. It's not only one of my favorite music videos, but as I watched and rewatched it and grew to appreciate just how much work went into it, it's become one of my favorite short films as well. You really should watch the full music video before watching this analysis. I'll link the music video, the earlier version from his comedy special, and an even earlier YouTube upload in the description, so you can watch all 3 versions I'll be talking about if you want. The other 2 are more optional, but the music video functions as a fun, dark short that goes unexpected places. And it's also best to hear the final version of the song before you listen to me talk about its evolution. Burnham, especially as he's gotten older versus when he was an edgelord teen YouTube star,
Ellen Keller was my perfect woman,
has done a great job with taking subjects where an easy, demeaning joke could be made and instead applying some level of nuance and empathy. The song Art is Dead is off of his special Words, Words, Words. Repeat Stuff is off of his special What, as is Sad. In his next special, Make Happy, there are 3 great examples of this as well. Lower Your Expectations, Pandering, and Kill Yourself. There are other songs and other examples, but for brevity's sake, I'm sticking to 6. Because as we all know, I'm known for my brevity. For all of these songs, you start with one surface-level joke, whether it's parody, or a cliched joke, or a shock value joke, or whatever. Art is Dead is the most serious of all of these examples.
This song isn't funny at all, but it helps me sleep at night.
But it does still take that surface premise. Art is dead now. Modern performers are shallow and immature.
Have you ever been to a birthday party for children? One of the children won't stop screaming, cause he's just a little attention attractor. When he grows up to be a comic or actor, he'll be rewarded for never maturing, for never understanding or learning. Every day can't be about him, there's other people, you selfish asshole.
And adds an unexpected layer of self-deprecation and self-loathing.
Must be psychotic, it must be demented to think that I'm worthy of all this attention.
Entertainers are entitled, whining monsters, and Burnham is one of them.
The show has got a budget. The show has got a budget. And all the poor people way more deserving of the money won't budget. Cause I wanted my name in lights. But I could have fed a family of 4 for 40 fucking fortnights. A 40 fucking
takes hacky shock sadness jokes,
Just picture a depressed onion cutting itself.
some of which are admittedly kind of funny,
I saw a little boy drop his ice cream cone directly on his mother's corpse. I saw a kitten stuck in a tree, then the kitten jumped off and he hung itself.
and subverts them in the last verse.
The world's so sad, bros. Pain, genocide, war, sexism, racism. But I gotta remember there's good things about it too. Like the fact that none of that's happening to me. Score!
Implicating both Burnham as a performer for exploiting tragedy for cheap laughs, and his audience, who has been laughing along the entire time.
How do y'all do it? I've been telling you guys terribly sad things this whole song. You haven't been sad at all. You've been happy. No. You've been laughing. Being a comedian isn't being an insensitive prick capitalizing on the most animalistic impulses of the public. It's being a hero. The world isn't sad. The world's funny. I'm a sociopath. I saw an old man slip and fall. Hey, what a fucking idiot. I saw a woman at her daughter's funeral. Ha ha ha. Classic comedy. Because tragedy will be exclusively joked about. Because my empathy is bumming me out. Goodbye, sadness. Hello, jokes.
I'll get to repeat stuff in a minute. Lower Your Expectations has elements of men are like this, women are like this, Battle of the Sexes gender essentialism.
If you want love, lower your expectations a few, because Prince Charming would never settle for you.
But it's more an exploration of the unrealistic expectations put on people of any gender, including how these expectations can be contradictory. Societal expectations of men to be both gentle feminists and chivalrous tough guys.
You want a guy that's sweet, a guy that's tough, a feminist who likes to pay for stuff, a good boy, a bad boy, a good bad boy, a half good, half bad, half boy.
Women to be both model level attractive and down to earth and humble.
You want a girl that's nice, a girl that's not obsessed with her looks but is insanely hot, a real girl, a hot girl, a really hot girl, a brand new really hot real doll.
It's a critique of culture, of impossible heteronormative standards of what love is.
Now you might think that this guy only exists in your mind, but guess what? You're right.
And it's not putting people down for not meeting these expectations. It also ends with Burnham making fun of himself for even pretending to know about life and love at his age.
And I would know I just turned 25.
Pandering
I'm wetting you, I hope you're feeling me.
is a parody of modern country music. But rather than making fun of poor people, or southern people, or people who live in rural areas, Burnham focuses on how rich musicians, well, pander to a working class demographic that they have nothing in common with.
Where instead of people actually telling their stories, you got a bunch of millionaire metrosexuals who've never done a hard day's work in their life, but they figured out the words and the phrases they can use to pander to their audience, raking in millions of dollars from actual working class people. I walk and talk like a field hand, but the boots I'm wearing cost $3 grand. I write songs about riding tractors from the comfort of a private jet. I'm Mike Mandarin. Fuck your ears, I'm pandering. I write songs for the people who do jobs in the towns that I'd never move to.
As someone who grew up around a lot of working class southern people, I appreciate the avoidance of easy hit jokes. At times those jokes are there,
No shoes, no shirt, no Jews, you didn't hear that.
Legalize gerrymandering. Tolerate my pandering. You got a beautiful mouth, I got a beautiful...
but hopefully they're more at the expense of this persona of a wealthy musician. Or maybe at the expense of country songs like this one.
I bring street slang for dummies, cause they put pop in my country. The way it was back then, back when a hoe was a hoe, coke was a coke, and crack's what you were doing when you were cracking jokes.
Which always rubbed me the wrong way.
And when you said I'm down with that, well, it
Pandering is about a respect for art, regardless of its origin.
I think country music gets a bad rep. You know, why is it that when Bruce Springsteen sings about a fucking turnpike, it is art, and then when someone sings about a horse, it's dumb inherently? I think some of the greatest songwriters of all time are country artists, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, you know? And if you're writing honestly, that is art, and I would never bash that. The problem is, with a lot of modern country music, what is called stadium country music, the sort of Keith Urban brand of country music.
Might get your picture in a hometown paper. Maybe buy your mama that Cadillac.
Is that it is not honest.
And that's all we do anyway. It's all you're doing. You create. We create. These guys are creating, and I get to do it with music.
And a respect for human beings regardless of how much money they have. And it makes fun of both the impulse to write off a genre or a region as redneck trash, and the people who play into these stereotypes as outsiders and manipulate their audience the same way pop star Burnham and Repeat Stuff does to teenage girls.
Thematically meandering, emphatically pandering. I got a tight grip on my demo's balls. Say the word truck, they jizz in their overalls.
How a lot of country music has a creepy, vaguely rapey vibe to it.
We go to bed, you doze off. So I take your country girl clothes off.
And how the songs are formulaic and exploitative and have no respect for their audience.
Y'all dumb motherfuckers want a key change.
One of my favorite parts of the song isn't a particularly clever rhyme or reference.
I own a private ranch that I rarely use.
It's just Burnham saying, I don't like dirt.
I don't like dirt.
It's worth noting too that while Burnham is playing a character here, he still talks in the first person.
I do what I do because I'm a total fucking country boy.
There's also a similar joke about dumb Alabama rednecks elsewhere in the special. Here it is, in full.
We just played in Alabama. They just like the lights. I didn't even need to do jokes. Motherfuckers got moving candles. No, not quite. Alabama was actually nice. You're elitist pricks. Isn't that fun?
And here's a clip from Burnham's guest appearance on Parks and Rec in 2014.
I'll bring the girls, you bring the beer, and the troops will bring the freedom.
Where he plays a sort of Repeat Stuff, pandering, hybrid country YouTube star who uses vague allusions to his mother and the troops to get views.
His latest song, Beautiful Like My Mom, parentheses support the troops, has like 2 million hits on YouTube.
She don't care about no fancy trend. She's just a mom from old South Bend. Get home safe, boys, and thank you for protecting our freedom. Bunch of dirty hicks.
Next is Kill Yourself.
It won't be painful if you are able to give a little kiss to an oncoming train. You'll kill yourself. It's over, Muller. There's a trigger, pull it. Get it through your head, it being a bullet.
In my political correctness video, I criticized George Miller for making Kill Yourself songs and used a clip of Burnham regretting his own Helen Keller jokes because of how those could have been used to bully a deaf person. For Kill Yourself, which speaks on inspirational pop songs and how you shouldn't turn to pop music or pop artists to sustain you emotionally, they're only there to use you for your money. After all, it's about how you are sold overly simplified narratives and simple solutions for complex problems that you should seek actual professional help for.
That life's toughest problems don't have simple answers. You shouldn't just be brave. You shouldn't just roar. You shouldn't kill yourself.
Burnham goes pretty far out of his way to state that he understands depression.
But I understand that it's a sensitive subject and you're probably just hearing me say that.
Briefly hints that he has struggled with mental health issues himself.
And I've dealt with, I don't want to be insensitive.
Says that if you're depressed, you should seek a therapist.
I sound unempathetic. I sound mean and rude. Suicide is an epidemic, and I don't want to be misconstrued. Signs of depression go overlooked. So if you're depressed, then you need to book a therapy session. Talk about your depression and let a professional hear it.
And then jokes that if you can only find meaning for your life in Katy Perry songs, then, well, never mind. You should definitely just kill yourself.
But if you search for moral wisdom in Katy Perry's lyrics, then kill yourself.
Part of what makes this song less able to be weaponized to bully some kid, or less likely to encourage an actual suicidal person, are the ways he couches the jokes in empathy and the ridiculous and over-the-top suicide methods that he suggests.
Stick your tongue in a plug, suck a pipe of exhaust, make some toast in the tub, nail yourself to a cross.
The only parts of Kill Yourself that I would criticize, actually, are the extremely hack jokes about AIDS.
Drink a Haitian guy's blood,
and Oprah being fat.
let Oprah sit on your face.
Which, in 2016, almost seemed like Burnham was being intentionally unfunny. Overall, though, the juxtaposition between an empathetic and supportive Burnham and the one suggesting suicide methods works.
Now, I feel like you pulled back. Maybe it's on account of the fact that I'm telling you to kill yourself over and over again.
Especially because he pushes the edge of the kill yourself line, then softens it, then pushes, then softens again. I definitely feel like if he had written this as a teenager, it would have been less empathetic. And without that sharp juxtaposition between the empathy and the suicide joke, it would have been less funny and less effective overall. I do find his work and these songs funny, but even if they weren't funny to me, even if objectively you don't get the laughs out of them that I do, I wanted to break down what he's doing with his body of work and the way that he handles these jokes. Not just smugly rampaging through our culture and striking down easy targets, but navigating satire with empathy for young people and downtrodden people and people with mental health issues, and over taking aim at himself just as much as anyone else, if not more so.
How does he do it? How does he pretend to do it? How does he remain contrived? I'm not honest for a second up here. Art is a lie. Nothing is real.
A comic can be funny and have occasional moments of insight when they're indiscriminately shotgunning everything, as many comics do. And don't you dare criticize them.
This could be a little offensive, but, my motto is if you can laugh at one group of people, you gotta be able to laugh at them all, This song is gonna seem terribly offensive, but, remember, it's satire, and, please don't kick the shit out of me. Jeez. Cause it's a clan cookout.
In 2009, when he was 18, Burnham was protested against at Westminster College in Fulton, Missouri. An article from the Columbia Daily Tribune states, about 15 protesters, including members of the Gay Straight Alliance, Black Students Association, International Club, and the Cultural Diversity Organization, held signs and rallied outside Champ Auditorium, where the concert took place. The article then mentions Bo being uncomfortable while interacting with a disabled fan, after his act that repeatedly mocked disabled people. Though the fan was clearly fine with offensive humor, and it's possible that the article's author was reading some into the situation. In a 2009 Boston Herald interview, which I paid $4 to access because even the archived version was behind a paywall, Burnham said, "It's so ironic because gay bashers were the ones labeling me in high school, and I try and write satire that's well-intentioned, but those intentions have to be hidden. It can't be completely clear, and that's what makes it comedy." But then, 7 years later, in a 2016 CBS interview on political correctness, he said,
Well, I just think comics are crybabies and give me a break. You get up there and you talk for an hour and then they have an impulse to be heard too. You know what I mean? This is if it's rock and roll, well, who cares what they think about it? And truly political correctness with young people, for me it's an overcorrection for a serious problem like bigotry and racism. But no comedians are being, thrown in jail. They're getting lit up on Twitter maybe a few times. They go through, and that's wrong and maybe bad sometimes. But again, this is from people who have had their opinions heard relentlessly, hours every night, all the time. And then a blogger gets up and expresses their opinion in a blog, and it's what? How do you not understand that the audience has the same impulse you do?
Don't kill yourself. I don't like explaining jokes, but the joke where I tell everyone to kill themselves might deserve an explanation. Do not. And if you're offended, do not write a blog. I apologize immediately. Sorry, right away.
My mother's a hospice nurse, so it's hard for me to look at, a couple college kids with signs outside a comedy show and think that I'm, up against anything structurally.
It's rarer and more rewarding to find someone who started out that way, then grew up, and uses his platform and his art to tackle what upsets him and disturbs him in the wider culture. Crafting clever or shocking juxtapositions, and ripping open contradictions, over and over trying to call attention to the widespread exploitation that we accept and ignore. In a 2013 interview with Vulture, he said, "I don't think it's very cynical to be critical of the media. Being critical of what pop stars and celebrities say seems obvious to me. I hope it's level-headed. I find pop culture and celebrity to be very cynical. When I'm being critical about it, I hope I'm not being too cynical about it. Realistic, I think. Or, hopefully, just showing things that people swallow without thinking about it just because they have real jobs. Where I have this silly job where I think about it all the time. It's not like Burnham is afraid to offend anyone either."
Hey, Bo, guess what?
What?
You're a faggot.
Or that his stage persona is strictly sensitive, and gentle, and thoughtful.
If I fuck a kid, I'm a pedophile, but if a kid fucks me, I'm a pedophile again, twice in a week.
Part of the persona, even as he's gotten older, has been using offensive humor to push the people in his audience away.
Macaroni and our favorite chips, salt and Wow. Who said it?
And while I wouldn't consider it the strongest aspect of his work, it does make the moments of empathy seem sincere rather than compulsory. Okay, now for the actual subject of the video. Sort of. I'm going to talk about the song first, then I'll get to the music video. This interview was uploaded to YouTube on May 3rd, 2013. His special, What?, dropped on December 17th, 2013 on YouTube and Netflix, as did the separate performance of the show that's on the album, which, as an additional track, included the studio version of Repeat Stuff, that being the exact same version later used in the music video. The full music video for Repeat Stuff dropped on September 24th, 2014. These are the earliest versions of the song I can find on YouTube, both from a performance at the Trocadero Theater in Philadelphia on December 4th, 2010. Meaning here he's 24, here he's 23, here he's 22, and here he is 20 years old. He might have started writing the song when he was 19 or even younger. I'm not sure. I mention all of that both to show that this was an evolution over a period of at least 4 years to get to the final music video, and that Burnham was very, very young when he first started it. There are only a handful of uploads of older versions of Repeat Stuff on YouTube. The first few are shorter than the final version.
This song's a work in progress.
And Burnham draws attention to the song being unfinished.
Oh, this song isn't finished, it's hard to transition out of sound and hit the third track. Oh, wow, 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 and then I'll stop playing. How do you get out of a song you haven't finished? Sound man, hit the third track for me. Please, hit the third track. I can't release.
He also says my producer instead of my agent.
If you're my producer, you might be thinking, oh no, sound the alarms.
These segments here were eventually cut.
I'm just a one boy, you're just a one girl. So that makes two of us. Oh boy, girl, you're my only. Sing it!
And the girl with no arms bit was more aggressive and less funny. There were other minor changes over time before the finished version came out on What? Apart from a Jason Derulo joke,
Jason Derulo.
the only real difference in the song, between the What version and the studio version used in the music video, is Burnham pretending to perform oral sex on Satan.
Oh, Satan, you taste so good.
And making weird noises.
I am a vessel 666. Illuminati.
Versus in the studio version where layered distorted voice clips are used. The effect is similar though. The What version even has visual elements that are repurposed for the music video. Gentle blue and magenta lights are used for most of the song, with sudden red light blasting, accompanied by a Nazi salute as an over-the-top gag highlighting the evil and exploitative nature of these performers. The What version allows for further audience implication. The Nazi salute comes partially as a joke at their expense, just as he's gotten them to enthusiastically sing along.
Repeat stuff, everybody! Come on, louder, I can't hear you!
His voice is a little different as well. In the What version, the juxtaposition between his faux carefree pop star voice and his evil voice is more played up, and both are more cartoonish. One sillier.
Repeat stuff, 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 repeat stuff.
And one more menacing.
Fuck 'em who needs 'em! Fuck 'em who needs 'em!
All of the songs I have mentioned here are in some way about exploitation, Repeat Stuff included, but it has a larger scope. The surface level joke here is very clear and easily accessible. Pop stars pump out repetitive, simplistic hits and are part of a machine that traps young girls in a cycle of self-loathing and turning to them for love and comfort in exchange for money.
I also hope that you don't see through this cleverly constructed ruse designed by a marketing team, cashing in on puberty and low self-esteem and girls' desperate need to feel loved. America says we love a chorus, but don't get complicated and bore us, though meaning might be missing. We need to know the words after just one listen, so repeat stuff.
The video adds other aspects in addition to this. Axes of exploitation on display in the music video are on the basis of race, gender, age, ability, and income. An audience member is only valuable as far as they can consume his product or be used by him to sell his product to consumers. Take this bit.
And I love how your torso has an arm on either side now. If you're my agent, you might be thinking, oh no, sound the alarms. You're not appealing to little girls who don't have arms, but they can't use iTunes, so fuck 'em, who needs 'em?
For the record, little girls who don't have arms can use iTunes. Being disabled doesn't preclude you from enjoying pop music and being just as exploited. While Burnham clearly meant it as a dig at sociopathic capitalism, I've known enough disabled people that enjoy music that I figured I would mention it. The actors in the video who are black or mixed race are shown literally dancing at Burnham's command for Burnham's amusement, and him saying swag is both a funny juxtaposition of slang versus his satanic monster character, and an example of how white pop stars appropriate black vernacular. The change bit is weird, I guess like a visual gag. It's more silly than anything, but maybe also an implication of pennies paid for the work black artists put in. And as a further gag, he says, "What the fuck?" Here, not even understanding them or what is happening. Burnham is also playing multiple characters and incorporating multiple layered personas in this video. There's the persona that little girls fall in love with, the Bieber-esque beau. There's the behind-the-scenes cult leader satanic monster behind that persona. And there are a surprising number of incorporations of Burnham himself, or his original persona, separate from the video. The Bieber parody is that surface-level joke, and most of the non-satanic lyrics are from this point of view. Repeat Stuff sounds similar to Bieber's song Baby,
I was like, baby, 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 oh, like, baby, 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 no, like.
and the video is in part a parody of his Confident music video. There's a little bit of insidiousness to the character, though it doesn't start overt. For example, he's androgynous in a way that lowers the guards of female fans, and as a cover to mask how sexually exploitative he is. There's a joke about an agent performing oral sex on him, but it's not homophobic. Rather, it's a web of sexual predation on all sorts of people. Men around him, women in his video, a young girl, whatever. Where the video gets really wild and visually interesting is when satanic cult leader Burnham comes in. He is Satan in human form. His music is a plague, and his purpose is virgin sacrifice. As far as people his own age, he's surrounded by a cult of sycophants engaged in bizarre childlike behavior. It's a funny juxtaposition to have a bunch of people in their late teens and early 20s playing with toys, especially because the only actual fans shown are much younger. It reminds me of tobacco ads that targeted children, or a corporate idea of what kids would like or want. The cult all also literally drink Kool-Aid together, emphasized by this group suicide pantomime that I always found pretty funny. There are multiple overt references to the Illuminati. I don't know if they're related, or if it's some other weird reference, but this guy's hand signal reminded me of Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records diamond hand sign, that paranoid conspiracy theorists have insisted is related to the Illuminati or Satan or whatever. The video also has a bunch of one-frame text inserts, being that subliminal messages are a cliched aspect of brainwashing conspiracy theories. Some of the messages are silly jokes, but many of them involve encouraging the pursuit of fame, tying back into the key themes of the video, and of Burnham's typical message. There are a few satanic symbols and references throughout the video, some overt and some more subtle. Did you notice that the cross Burnham wears and puts in his mouth is upside down? Even more extreme are the comparisons to Hitler. There are the Illuminati Nazi armbands, the Hitler speech in the background, the actual Nazi salute. It's played for shock laughs and to catch the audience off guard in the What version, but is more a piece woven into a wider tapestry of evil in the music video. The color symbolism that carried over from the What version, while simple, is really effective, and it builds out a solid and consistent color palette for the video. I really like the look of the video and the costume design and the visual motifs. Whether intentional or not, the opening shot reminds me of Halloween, and Beau's outfit and the jumpsuit worn by Michael Myers are a similar shade of navy. My favorite cut in the entire video is this one. All of the songs I have talked about have juxtapositions played for comedy, but the one here is genuinely sad and creepy. You have Beau moving and dancing and being silly, leaned back on the car with casual body language, then you cut to him looming over a girl's corpse, staring directly at the camera. It's made even more effective by a later shot with the same setup, but of Beau dancing, incorporating both the violence and the manufactured carefree silliness. Burnham is very tall. Google says 6'5", and normally he plays up being skinny and lanky in an effeminate way with dancing or slapstick. In a 2013 interview with NPR, he said,
"The comedy club environment, unless you're very careful of it, it kind of creates a very tough, very, I think, masculine comedian that can be very combatant on a, 12 p.m. Saturday show and the crowd's getting a little rowdy. As opposed to, I think I was able to make this sort of weird, slightly androgynous theatrical comedy that would have been squashed had I brought it around the clubs."
This shot is the only time I've seen his height used deliberately to look hulking and intimidating. He works as the video's villain, not in spite of his lanky physicality, but because of it. And I could see the aesthetic and the character working in a more traditional narrative horror short or feature film. There are also some small, weird shots and jokes that I liked. Why does this person's hoodie just say hoodie? These posters on the girl's wall are references to two of Burnham's old music videos, Words, Words, Words from September 2010 and Oh Beau from October 2010. This shot is so funny. What are they even doing? What are y'all doing? I tried to see if 1213 has any meaning, but only found weird angel stuff. In the vocal montage, you can very quietly hear him insulting his audience.
Repeat step, 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 repeat step.
His face on the magazine cover is so dour and serious. I know this is probably they had to reverse it in editing, but why is this guy walking backwards? Artemis looking to the camera here right before this cut is so brilliant. It's such a great touch. And, well, during the course of making this video, I also discovered my own mystery. One that I did not expect. So, if you did what I suggested and watched the YouTube upload of repeat stuff, did you notice that something was off when I used this clip at the beginning of this video? It's from an alternate version of the repeat stuff music video. There is a discrepancy. Could it be a conspiracy? The Illuminati? So I don't know much about the technical specifics or the industry standard specifics of this overall, but I've seen a lot of times where someone who worked on a music video will have an upload of that video on their personal Vimeo account as part of their portfolio, separate from the popular and official YouTube upload. Vimeo is a more professional website and compresses videos significantly less than YouTube does. So, when I'm looking for versions of music videos or short films to use in essays, I'll check both YouTube and Vimeo for uploads and try to use whichever one looks better. At some point, I watched the Vimeo upload of Repeat Stuff on the channel of Rami Hashush, the music video's director. Since I had seen the YouTube version a million times in the past year, and since I'm neurotic and obsessive, I immediately noticed a difference between the two uploads. It's a clip I had never seen before, and the color balance is completely off, so it stands out a lot. And I feel like I would have caught it just on that, even if I wasn't as familiar with the other version. It's around 1:21 in both versions. I rewatched a couple times, and I think I kind of caught that the clips before it were different as well. So being a very normal person who definitely does not have too much time on my hands, I grabbed both versions at 1080 and I synced them up and layered one on top of the other in the timeline with the top one at around half opacity. I sat there and I watched the whole video. This starts at around 1:12 if you're watching the full videos. Even all of the subliminal text bits match up. The only discrepancy was the one I had noticed and the few clips preceding it. I really like in the Vimeo version the way his body language makes a nice transition. Him looking down with his arms out and how it adds movement and connectivity between two cuts, where before it was pretty arbitrary. And I got really curious. Why is this here? I feel like it's a better transition, but the color is off, and that makes it look unfinished even though the timing of the cut is great. Here's a comparison with me doing around 2 minutes of rough color correction work in Premiere to show the difference and how easy it would be to fix. Why wasn't it fixed? Especially if the rest of the video looks and sounds exactly the same, apart from the end of the YouTube version having a Burnham ad tacked on. The Vimeo version also has a nice, professional looking thumbnail that the YouTube version doesn't. So, here came the real challenge. I wondered, was the director's version uploaded prior to the YouTube version, hence the unfinished shot? Or was it uploaded after, since they would, of course, want to premiere it on Burnham's YouTube channel for maximum views and impact? YouTube has a date clearly visible, published on September 24th, 2014. But on Vimeo, it just said 4 years ago. 4 years ago under the video. 4 years ago in a bunch of comments. 4 years ago doesn't help me. So then I keep looking and Googling around, and I find this random blog post on some blog called Spiral of Hope on how, in order to see the date a video was uploaded to Vimeo, you have to download the video's XML file. So using their template and changing the URL to match the video's ID, I downloaded the XML file of the Repeat Stuff upload, and there it is. 2014-09-24. It went up the same day. I learned nothing, basically. But like the Virtual Woman segment of Fake Friends 2, I found it weird and interesting. I really enjoy strange and consequential deep dive mysteries. I wanted to be a detective when I was a little kid, and I enjoy looking into stuff that nobody else cares to look into. I might try to reach out to and interview Hashush after I publish this video. I'd rather get my own ideas and interpretations out there before I talk to him, and if I do interview him, I will definitely bring up this tiny discrepancy that I found really interesting. Pop stars and boy bands can be a safe and non-threatening place for young people to have crushes. I'm not demonizing young people for being fans of pop stars or demonizing musicians for making music, pop or not. But while Nazi iconography is a little extreme for a satirical music video, I do feel that all of the Illuminati Satan stuff, meant as cultural shorthand for evil, is apt in describing the tangible negative effects these relationships can have on young people, being tricked into thinking spending their parents' money on more merch and more music will help fulfill them or make them happy. The first Demon Eyes shot is this one.
But you'll still love it and let me finger you. Yeah, finger you.
On an explicitly sexual line and played as a joke, but the most shocking and upsetting aspect of the Repeat Stuff music video is how predatory Burnham is in moments where it isn't played up for laughs. Him looming over a corpse is one, and others are the creepy shots of him outside of a teenage girl's room, where it's almost implied that he's masturbating to her photograph. The girl has Egghead, his real-life book of poems, by her bed. Burnham's persona with regard to sex is usually portrayed as him being non-threatening and inept and immature.
I like Oreos and pussy. Yeah.
I talked about his physicality being used differently to express physical violence. The same can be said about him being sexually predatory. The beginning of the song praises the girl Bo is speaking to for giving her heart to him.
I love your heart and you're so smart 'cause you gave away it.
But by the end, we see that it's not given. It's taken. She reaches out to touch him with this stunned look of reverence in her eyes, and he murders her and eats her heart, surrounded by ephemera of his own real-life career. In the Vulture interview, Burnham said, "With Repeat Stuff, so much of the pop songs have absolutely no artistic function, and only function to sell something to little girls. That particular genre, in my opinion, targets very precarious things about little girls. Their own insecurity and self-esteem issues."
This poem's called Ashley. Little Ashley hung magazine spreads in her wall after picking the magazines out in the mall. Models and actresses, singers and more, with cleavage and makeup and glamour galore. All of her heroes were finally near her. Her whole room looked perfect, except for the mirror.
That, to me, is a little bit predatory and a little bit evil. I'm fine with things not being original. I want hardcore content to be the product of someone's beliefs, and for them to make something that connects with people, as opposed to making something that is meant to sort of trick people and just sell them something, to have your way with them and then leave them. Burnham's treatment of sexual assault language in this interview and in the imagery in his video may seem flippant, but I can see what he's going for. Not only with stars fostering trust and love in fans to, in return, harvest fame and money from, but also real-world consequences for young fans who do meet their idols or famous crushes and let their guard down, or see this person that they're a fan of through rose-colored glasses, who end up, at best, used and hurt with a new don't meet your heroes mindset, and at worst, assaulted. This applies to feminist comedians who took advantage of fans or colleagues, as well as rock and pop stars who have historically had a habit of statutory raping teenage groupies.
Look, I can do whatever I want, all right? If I want to shoot a paintball gun at my dad, I'm gonna do it.
So, why didn't Burnham come up with a fake name or a character name for the video? John LaJoie's pop parody
It's a market this song to young, impressionable, and insecure teenage girls. Cause all they gotta do is find a sexually attractive man that can sing all the words.
uses his name as a flashy background, but he plays characters totally unrelated to his own YouTube music career, sans one cameo. And in Pandering, a music style parody of a different genre,
You know, like that genre.
Burnham is clearly playing someone separate from himself. But here, a deliberate choice was made for the evil pop Satan to be Burnham. In the What version, he's happily serving Satan as an accomplice. But in the music video, he is Satan. It's next level self-deprecation. This is beyond brand recognition or an easy go-to. This is self-implication. This shot of him in a white t-shirt at a piano is a quintessential Burnham image. He wears the same shirt when he smothers the girl to death with her own pillow. How many of Burnham's fans, especially when he was a YouTube star, were teenage girls? Here's a clip from the track Out of the Abyss, from the album performance of What, that I used in the intro of the first episode of Fake Friends.
I'm giving you attention, girl that's wooing. Are you happy now? You love me? That's very nice. You love the idea of me. You don't know me, but that's okay. It's called a parasocial relationship. It goes one way and is ultimately destructive. But please, keep buying all my shit forever. That's how it works. Capitalism, I'm trapped. It's terrible. I'm a horrible person. All right.
Right after this aside, Burnham segues into the album performance of Repeat Stuff. How many audience members have screamed at him that they loved him, despite his rebuking them when they did?
I hate catchy choruses and I'm a hypocrite. Hungry, hungry hypocrite.
My experience, even with an audience a fraction the size of Burnham's, is that people like you a lot more when they perceive you as being honest, even if what you're being honest about is how your audience sometimes scares you. Or in his case, if you feel like you're exploiting them. It's that quality of heart that Horton and Wohl talked about. So even as I insist that my audience doesn't know me and should be inherently suspicious of the idea of emotional intimacy with someone they're a fan of, I get messages from strangers telling me I'm a good person, or asking me for help with very personal life problems that I'm not remotely qualified to help with. Many people told me my last big video made them cry and changed how they interact with media online. That's great. That's awesome. That's what I wanted. To reach people emotionally and intellectually. But having that kind of power makes me feel strange and uneasy. When thousands of people trust you and care about your opinions and what you think they should do in their day-to-day lives, it's a responsibility I wasn't really prepared for. You have to take conscious effort not to end up playing into it for your wallet or your ego. Not that I'm in any danger of turning into a rapey Satan monster, and not that Burnham saw himself as one either. It's just that the more I grow my fan base, the more I can relate to Burnham's anxieties, and the more I appreciate his work. The Repeat Stuff music video has over 100,000 views on Vimeo and over 10 million on YouTube. I really appreciate how accessible it is and how clear the message it has is, while remaining uncompromising in its dark tone. Hopefully it didn't just preach to the choir or fuel those making fun of teenage girls for loving pop stars, because if you spend any time looking at it, there's so much more to it. I received dismissive comments on the first Fake Friends from people who found Burnham annoying, but that seems to have decreased as I showed less of his song clips and more of his self-loathing anti-fame rhetoric. Like I said before, I don't care if you like him or if you find him funny or not. I just wanted to share my appreciation for what he's doing on a technical level as well as an ideological one. Most of the Vimeo versus YouTube video discrepancy segment was repurposed from a Patreon post I made while researching. Thanks to Michael Brown for research help, and a couple other unnamed folks for help as well. The Genius page for Repeat Stuff helped my research some, especially with the Bieber parody aspect, and it links this music video by Axis of Awesome. link in the description, that explores the song with the same 4 chords aspect of Burnham's parody. I don't know much about the mechanics of music, and I wanted to focus on writing and filmmaking, but that's worth watching for some further elaboration on how derivative a lot of these songs are in their construction. If you enjoyed this video and want to check out more of my work, I'd recommend the first 2 Fake Friends episodes and my essay on political correctness and empathy. Longtime viewers might have noticed that I was able to spend more time on motion graphics, visual effects, redoing voiceover, and the like for this video, and that I finished it relatively quickly for a video of its length. That's a direct result of my Patreon support growing significantly after Fake Friends 2. If you want to support my work, I have a Patreon for ongoing donations and a Ko-fi for one-time donations. Thanks!